Welcome back to Fast Monty's Garage. Today we get to measure for brand new wheels because I mini tubbed the GTO. And if you're brand new, go hit that I button right there. There's a giant playlist on how to put mini tubs in a GM A-body. So if you have an A-body, check it out. It's eye-opening to say the least. But today I'm going to measure for wheels before I put the brakes on the axle because my brakes interfere with this tool. More on that later. But the big takeaway here, the instructions, yeah, they're not right. So I'm going to go through why I figured that out and what you can do to remedy the situation before you make a costly mistake, because in this case, my wheels are $1,600 a piece. It could be costly, right? So this episode, we're going to measure by mocking up the tire and figure out our offset or back spacing, I should say, not offset. The other thing they have from Speedway Motors is an add-on tool that mimics the tire profile. We're going to go over that too to see if that works and how to make it work for your application. Now, if I've ever helped you out in the past, consider getting a hat, shirt. All those links are below. There's the Full Monty Club right there. All proceeds from that go to helping the channel, buying more parts, me making more mistakes, you guys learning faster. And if you like learning faster at my expense, go ahead and hit subscribe, click that notification bell, and we can move forward. So speaking of moving forward, can't even talk. Let's go ahead and look at the instructions. I want to show you what I caught immediately, and then we can get to how to set up the tool. Okay, let's talk about wheel design real quick. This diagram in instructions is correct. So when you order a wheel, it's the inside dimension between the lips. So in my case, I'm ordering a 20 by 12. When you order a wheel, it's this measurement. This is the measurement you're ordering. When you get this wheel, it's 13 inches wide. So there's a ½ inch on both sides. So it's 13 overall. So keep that in mind. So if you're ordering an 8.5 wide wheel, it actually comes 9.5. So keep that in mind, because this back dimension is the back spacing dimension. That's what we're after to order the wheel. That's off the mounting flange to the very back edge of the wheel. Now, let's go to where I found a mistake. It can get confusing. Careful with this chart, because the wheel width here is the measured wheel width from outer lip to outer lip. So if you go down to 13, which is a 12-inch wheel, that is correct. So don't get confused by that. 335, that's what I'm running. Next thing we'll discover later when I show you how to measure back spacing. This wheel width is correct. We're going corner to corner on the tool. This back spacing from here to the vertical piece of the tool is not correct. We need to measure that and make an adjustment. I'll show you the adjustment when we get to it. On this little chart in the back, they show adjustable back spacing from the mounting flange, which is correct, but do not measure to the back of the bent up flange. I'll show you the details when we actually do it. So our main plate gets assembled like this. This is our measurement plate for your wheel diameter, and I recommend putting the wing nuts facing you, because if you're in the car and these are too loose, you got to get your pliers out, tighten them up. It's harder to do when they're back here. So I learned that the hard way the first time I tried it out. So there you go. And let's go move on to the wheel width bracket. For our tire brackets, we need to start with these two pieces. So the one looks like a ruler, that goes on top, and take this other piece and put it on the bottom. Put your carriage bolt up from the bottom and use your wing nut just loosely. Enough where you can gently slide this back and forth, because now we have to measure from this corner to this corner with our wheel width. I know I briefly touched about wheel measuring earlier, but what you want to do is right here on this corner, take your tape and measure to the other side your wheel width. So I'm going to nail down 12 inches. It helps to have it on a flat surface when you're sliding this back and forth to tighten it down, but I'll show you. Tape on the corner. 12 inches right there. Now we put our tire bracket on. Carriage bolt has to go in this way, otherwise you can't tighten the wing nut. Same on the other side. Okay to leave them loose and make a duplicate copy with the other set of brackets, and this will put them in the tire. Okay, if you're looking at your tire, most tires have distinguishable marks that are actually perfectly spaced around the tire. So this particular tire from Michelin has these little ridges, and I'm going to use that as my symmetric point because you want to put one bracket here and one bracket here, perfectly 180 degrees from each other. Now when you put this in, for back spacing, we want the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the back of the tire. So the back of the tire is down. And most tires come wider. So when we put this in, it's going to pull the tire in a little bit, which is good. That's what I want because they're a little too wide as they are now. And then lock in the bracket on each end. So once your brackets are locked in, we can actually remove the original lock nut that kept the two plates together. And we're going to reuse those, so set those aside. Reason being is this top clamp is holding all three pieces together, the tire clamp and the two brackets that are measuring the width. Now we can put this in. So this facing front, and you put it at an angle like this, and you can slide it right on there, just like so. Find a spot that's the same using your ruler on the brackets, and then tighten it down with the carriage bolt facing inward, so the wing nut is towards the middle of the wheel. Okay, utilizing our TireRack.com spec for this tire and our wheel size, we want to measure the width before we put it in the car. Carpenter square, and we'll go over here. It might be tough to see, but the spec is 13.6 inches. There's 13, there's 13 and a half, and there is the sidewall, like right there. So that is perfect. I love it. Now we can put it in the car. Now we have to throw it on our hub and find your bolt pattern. So mine is 4 3/4, and that helps you target the stud, right? So find a stud, match it up. That'll help you put it on quicker. Here we go. Oh, and I totally forgot something. The brake hat. Damn it. Okay, that's better. Yes, I do make mistakes too, boys and girls. So I have my brake hat on there because that adds like 200 thou thickness, so you have to be aware of. And if you have your brake system already installed in your car, you might need to remove the caliper because if it protrudes past the mounting surface, you're not going to be able to use this tool. So take your calipers off. I also removed the suspension or the my coilovers. So your springs and struts, I highly recommend taking those out so you can mimic full travel of the suspension while you're testing for fitment, especially on the fronts. Put your fronts on, go lock to lock, use a bottle jack to move it up and down to make sure you're not rubbing when you're fully turned. And you can even mimic like loading going into a corner. Now, let's go ahead and get lug nuts on here to make sure we're perfectly flush. Okay, lug nuts are on. Now we're going to check and play with our spacing here on our bracket. And obviously look around your tire, make sure you have plenty of clearance. And something to note, if you have stock suspension or rubber bushings, you really probably need about a 1/2 inch clearance on either side of the tire. But mine, I have fully modern suspension, spherical bearings. I have like there's no rubber in the suspension system. So I have very, very, very little side-to-side movement in cornering, but yeah, pretty stiff. So having said that, now let's go ahead and make sure the measurement on this bracket matches the other bracket. Otherwise you're gonna have a wobbly scenario. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then raise my rear end so it's at my proper ride height. Going up. Oh yeah, look at that. This is too close for me, but those of you with GM A bodies, you can actually shave this back a little bit up to the middle of the spot weld. You can see the spot weld dimples. So I may elect to do that, don't know, but it is an option once I get the wheels made. So you have to go back and forth several times, measure both sides of the car. Your body might not be on the same distance, just if you have an old car, but do that both sides. Remember, measure 18 times so we can cut once. So now, once you have that squared away, we can take it off and I'll show you how to measure the back spacing. Now that we're off the car, remember we talked about back spacing? That is the distance from the mounting surface to the outer edge of the wheel. It's not the measured distance. So this is a 12-inch wheel. It's actually 13 inches wide. We have to add a half an inch from this mark. Do not use this mark here. It is wrong, as I stated earlier. So go ahead and take one of these brackets apart. We're going to leave one of them attached so we can pull this out and do an accurate measurement from this surface to that edge. So this assembly is still all locked together, just one side, right? What we need to do to ease measurement is take off the tire lip brackets. And you should be left with this assembly. Remember, this one's keeping everything together, so don't loosen it. All right, we can stand it up on our workbench. And now we need to figure out the back spacing. So get a carpenter square, and you can press up again. I'm pushing this way so I'm flush on the mounting surface. We still have our gap, 1/8 inch gap there. And we can now come over here, find our corner that we originally measured 12 inches to, and it's 6 3/4. That's not the back spacing. Remember, we have to add a half inch on either side. That's the 12-inch mark. Another half inch is 7 1/4. So the perfect back spacing is 7 1/4. However, depending on your wheel manufacturer, they might have different tolerances. For example, mine, they only come in 1/8 inch increments. So I can do 7 1/4 if I'm really trusting my measurements, but you know, I don't want to make a drastic mistake. I'm going to actually add 1/8 of an inch. The reason I'm going to add 1/8 of an inch is if I'm wrong, I can easily add an adapter to the hub. If I'm wrong the other way, you now have to shave fenders and all that stuff. That's no fun because you can't fix that. You can adapt it the other way. So I can actually add another spacer, and that will accommodate the 7 3/8. So I'm going to order my wheels 7 3/8. Cross your fingers and let's see if it works. If you bought the tire sizing portion of the kit, you use the same mounting plate, but this is all new. So this is a double stack plate, comes up through, and it's easier to mount when it's on your workbench. Next step is the tire dimension plate. Slips right through here. Carriage bolt comes from the bottom. On the tire width bar, it's important to note, do not use this dimension for the tire size. I have 335s. They measure 13.6. So you'd be a good 5/8 of an inch off if you use the 335 dimension there. So use the width, just like we looked up on TireRack.com. You attach it just like this. 2 carriage bolts and your tire height from your wheel. So mine's 4 inches right there. I'll lock it in and we'll throw it on the car. Okay, so similar process. You actually just make some adjustments. I changed to 3.5. I don't know where I got 4 from, but 3.5 inch tire wall height. And then I know my width is perfect because we just went over that. And you just spin it around. Make sure you don't hit anything. Again, do all your suspension travel you need to do to make sure it works. And there we go. So now the true test. Since I know my official back spacing from the prior tire setup, let's see if this tells us what the back spacing is. Looking all over this tool, I do not see a logical backspace number. Now, the ironic thing here is on the bottom where it says 7. And if you look straight at the mounting surface where my thumb is, it's almost 7 3/8. But what's bass-ackwards, that is just purely ironic because if we move in either direction, that's not the back spacing. Because back spacing, if we should move this ruler this way, the number should get bigger because the back of the wheel's over here. So it's opposite land, and we ironically found the number. So don't pay attention to that number. We have to figure out now how to measure it. So we know this is 13.6 inches wide, which is the tire width from TireRack.com. We need to take 300 thousandths off each end, like put a piece of tape, use my calipers, mark a line, and that'll be our 13-inch wheel width. And then we can measure from the mounting surface using our carpenter square to that mark to determine what the back spacing is with this setup. All right, trim my piece of tape on each side and let's make sure we got 13. 13 on the nose. Here's my crazy setup. I'm holding it flush to the mounting surface, going straight down, and then I have a ruler that's lined up with the end of the masking tape. I'll try and get a better shot of it here, but it is almost a 7 1/4, which is what we measured before. So that's good news. So that's how you do it. You might need a buddy to hold this whole thing together to keep it lined up, because it's kind of crazy, but I like it. So it seems that this will work to find a tire that will fit. Order the tire, then mock up the tire with this tool to double check your math, then order your wheel. That's what I recommend. I ordered the tire because I wanted that to fit in my mini tub, so that's already had the tire. I think that's what I would do, and make sure you get those specs from TireRack.com. That'll help tremendously. And yeah, lots to learn, but thanks for hanging out. And that's how you use this tool. I do like the tool, but you got to know how it works to get it to work right. And therein lies the rub, because 8 weeks, 10 weeks from now, I'll have my wheels, and you guys will either say I was right or I was wrong. And I will video that opening of that box. And I'm a little nervous about that back spacing being spot on, and we'll go from there. But next episode, we're going to continue with building up the rear of the car. I got to put the brakes back in, and we will discuss the Wilwood parking brake mechanism, which not many people cover on YouTube. Subscribe if you haven't. Until next time, building fast, driving faster. See ya.